Good evening and welcome to this week from Rockdale. And as usual, I am your host, Larry Cox. And we have, as the season dictates, we have another candidates night. And we've got a special guest tonight. We've got Corey Hambrick, who is running for sheriff of Rockdale County tonight. And we are going to bring him on here in a second, let him introduce himself and tell you why he's running, and then we'll get into our Q&A portion. But first, what I'd like you guys to do, let's share, like the show. Let's build the audience. I see the audience is starting to build generically right now on its own. So let's go ahead and build the show so we can get a good live audience going. So we can later on share the recording and people can have a good understanding of what the candidates want to share with you and what they want to say and their platform, because it's very important to know what candidates platforms are. I mean, guys, I've shared my platform as a candidate with you guys for months now, so you guys know what my platform is. And it's difficult for candidates in Rockdale County to actually get their platform out there, so it's important for shows like this week from Rockdale to exist, so candidates like Corey can actually come on these shows, get their platform out there, so people can understand the importance of voting and why they're the candidates you should vote for. So let me waste no further time and bring live to the show Mr. Corey Hambrick. Corey, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Larry. Thank you so much for having me on the show tonight and for just being consistent and making sure that the people of Rockdale County actually get facts. These days elections are so important, and I think it's very important for people to be able to hear the candidates and, basically their vision that they have for the county. So I want to thank you for inviting me tonight.
You're very welcome, guys. So what we're going to let Corey and let me say, we got a bunch of, how it is. People start joining and I'm going to say hi to some of the guests, and then we'll do a so. Well, I want to say Mary Boysworth, good evening. Charlotte Gillard, Jill Oden, William Canmore, Justin Kenny, my friend running for Board of Education. Also vote Justin Kenny. We need to keep Justin on the board. Lisa Lancaster, welcome to the show. George Kelichek, Angela Asprina, welcome to the show. So, Corey, the audience is building. We're up to like 15 now. That's a good number. I hope you've told your people to
I've
tune in
shared it.
tonight also. So
That's what I was doing right there, man. I was putting it on my page and I was sharing, telling people to get in here.
That's what I was doing, and we're building. I mean, it happens that way. Is when you
Okay.
come on, you get two or three people, and then by before you know it, you got 30 people streaming live, and it's the way it goes. So,
Beautiful thing.
Corey, why don't you go ahead, since we've got it going here, tell people who you are, why you're running, and why it's important to vote.
Well, thank you, Larry. Once again, my name is Corey Hambrick, and I am on the ballot to be your next sheriff here in Rockdale County. And our platform is three simple things. Number one, safety. Number two, leadership, servant leadership, transparent leadership. And last but not least, community. And what that simply means is safety from a standpoint of not just guns, badges, jail cells, and fast driving police cars. But I think one of the things that we need to look at now with the Rockdale County Sheriff's Office is making sure that we're resourced. Because if we're not resourced the way that we should be resourced, and that does include budget, that does include manpower, then we won't be able to fund the necessary things that we need to fund to make sure that we're all safe here in Rockdale County. And so three things that I will be looking at as your newly elected sheriff, should you have me, and I say that humbly, is number one, fiscal management. There's been a lot of talk about taxes. And one of the things that I've told people all the time, Larry, is we can get mad that the lemon meringue pie or the key lime pie is making us fat or growing us in terms of mass. But we also have to look at the actual ingredients inside of the pie. And one of the ingredients, unfortunately, for the Rockdale County taxpayer is the millions and millions of dollars. And I know people won't know this, so that's why I'm telling you this. This is public information, millions and millions of dollars of settlements with the Rockdale County Sheriff's Office. I didn't say judgments. I said settlements. And we all know the difference between a judgment and a settlement. The settlement is, okay, we give up, you got a point. What am I saying? A lot of those settlements and the monies that we've paid out of our insurance has been through situations and claims that were avoidable. And I do believe, once again, this is just fact, one of the major instances that happened in our county in terms of a specific jail death, when the grand jury returned their report, they simply said, and you can read it, it was, incompetence, not by necessarily an individual, but by the agency as a whole. And so incompetence or ignorance, it costs. And so that was 1.5 something $1 million. But there's a list on our website, running over people with police cars, false arrests, and things of this particular nature. And people go back and they literally sue the county and we pay. Well, we all know what happens anytime you file an insurance claim. The policy or the premium goes up, and then we have to add that in, to be able to pay that insurance policy. So this is one of many things. So safety. Number two, transparent leadership, servant leadership, leadership that says, I understand that I work for you, you don't work for me, which simply means you have to listen and you have to be very transparent. Transparency means honesty. It means integrity. It means if I mess up, say I messed up, we move on and we try to figure out a way we could correct the issue and make it better. Also, servant leadership says that you have to listen. I have to listen to the deputies, that I lead so that I can understand what they need in terms of resources. And then listening to the people that I serve, which is you, the taxpayer, so I can hear your concerns so that we could allocate those funds adequately. And then last but not least, community. When safety is the top priority, not just necessarily buying cars or reconstructing buildings and developing and things of that particular nature. But once we understand budgeting, once we understand retention, once we understand that policy management is also important, then we can do the necessary things that we have to do to keep us safe. Then we move to transparent leadership. When the leadership is in place and we're able to connect with community, then once again, and last but not least, the last part of our actual platform is community. The entire community benefits, not just a certain sector of people. So I've been in Rockdale County since 2007. I graduated high school from Redan High School in DeKalb County. I was born and raised in the metro Atlanta area. My mom later moved us to Athens because she worked for the University of Georgia. Once I graduated from Redan High School, I then went to Alabama A&M University to receive a degree, a bachelor's degree in political science, minoring in criminal justice. Then I came and I moved to Rockdale County because when I got out of college, my mother lived here. I started substitute teaching at Rockdale County High School in the Rockdale County Public School System. I then got a job with the City of Conyers Police Department. I matriculated through the police department, and I became from a road officer to the marshal to a corporal to a sergeant on the road, and then later a sergeant in the Criminal Investigations Division. That's where I received my Master's of Public Administration from Strayer University, or earned a Master's of Public Administration. And then later on, as you know, Larry, I was hired by the Board of Commissioners to become the chief of staff, whereby which I worked with elected officials on the budget and things of that particular nature. Certified, two major certifications that I do believe is relevant here. The first certification is through the Georgia Peace Officer and Standards and Training Council, which is a managerial certification through Post. And I will tell the people I am Post certified and I am a police officer and I am currently working with a police agency. That's number one. The second certification is leadership in police organization, and that was granted to me and earned through the International Association of Chiefs of Police.
Cool. Let's talk about the fiscal part because George Kellichek asked a question. The founder of the taxpayer here in Rockdale County, Mr. George Kellichek.
George Kelly.
So it's no secret for years here in Rockdale County I've talked about zero-based budgeting. And zero-based budgeting, are you familiar with the theory or principle behind zero-based budgeting?
I've heard you speak about it before, but if you could just refresh.
Yeah, zero-based budgeting is this: you start every fiscal year at zero,
Yes.
and because what most entities do or agencies do is they say, okay, this was our budget last year. Now we're just going to add 10%. So with zero-based budgeting, you actually start at zero, and you go in. Each
Yes.
department actually goes and says, okay, we're gonna need to buy X number of paper clips. So this is how many paper clips we're going to buy this year. This is going to be the cost for that. So you actually have to build the budget from zero, and it's a little time consuming, but it actually cuts waste because you don't duplicate services or duplicate expenditures from things you already have.
Yes.
And it makes you take a really close look at everything you're spending.
Yes.
So we, for us, we believe that zero-based budgeting helps get a control over the spending.
Yes.
So I intend to actually, if I'm elected to the school board, same thing. I want the school board to actually implement zero-based budgeting and the school board members being more involved in the budgeting. As sheriff, how do you intend to handle the budgeting? Are you just going to go, okay, it's this year, we got to bump it, or are you going to actually take and break it down and build it from zero? I mean, really, you're going to
That's a
go
great.
in fresh, Corey. You need to do that.
Of course, well, if you look at our website and if you even paid attention to some of the forums, I talked about that. One of the things that zero-based budgeting, I call it budget analysis in terms of you deconstruct so that you can reconstruct again. You got to break it down so that you can see what's going on. One of the mottos that I go by, you cannot manage what you're not willing to measure. What you're talking about, Larry, is being able to actually take an assessment and analyze what is needed. And in that, you take an analysis or you take an inventory of what you currently have, it'll tell you whether or not you need to go and rebuy it or not. Right. And so I think that is a hallmark, benchmark that is one of the principles of leadership that I think anybody should have, especially if you are managing a budget that's over 1/4 of the county's, revenue generating budget. Right. That budget went from $23 million in 2020 to now 34 some odd $1 million in less than 4 years.
And I do want to ask you a question too, because there's two numbers out here, right?
Correct.
So you'll say 34, and the sheriff's department will say 29. What's
Yes.
because I think the people need to know what's the discrepancy.
The discrepancy is the $29 million. So my $34 million came from the Board of Commissioners. We've been doing this for a long time, Larry. I wouldn't put a number out there that doesn't make any sense. And so when I pulled that number from the Board of Commissioners, my question was, and you don't have to be very specific with open records requests, what is the budget for the sheriff's office? And when they sent me the budget, it showed where it went from $23 million to now the request. And you know that the request is always granted. We're in that budget year right now of $34 million.
Well,
And
the chairman, that's one of the things the chairman always says, that he always grants the budget request for the sheriff's department, right?
correct.
So,
Correct.
so you're right. Whatever the request is what the budget's going to be.
It's $34 million. I mean, we got the open records request from the.
So where does the 29 come from? Is that what the previous budget was?
Yeah, well, that was probably the previous year.
Okay,
I,
so
I don't.
it's not the current request.
Correct. No,
Okay,
no. The current request is $34 million. Okay. And because it's $34 million, there's actually an expenditure of what they want to be able to spend those things on. And so the truth of the matter is now we're looking at an increase of over 40% over a 4-year period. Well, there's a lot of economists probably out here that's watching your broadcast. Inflation is approximately 3% a year of an increase on the average. The national average is about 3% a year. So if that was true, then that over a 4-year period, that's about $700,000 if you're looking at that first budget of $23 million. So that should put us about at $26 million in 4 years. The only concern is that we're asking for more money, we're budgeting for more money, but at the same time, we're getting less services. And that's the question that the taxpayer should be asking. If you ask me, where's that extra money going? How will it be utilized and things of that particular nature?
well,
But
you're right.
zero-based budgeting, you're right. I mean, I think you have to break it down and then we bill and then we may not need $34 million.
Well, you're right, Corey. You just mentioned that the inflationary rate is X, right? And the county will say every time they raise the budget, one of the biggest reasons they have to raise it is because of public safety. You hear that, right?
Correct.
Correct. So in in 2022, what do you think the county's overall tax increase was? Just the county.
In 2022, from 20 in terms of percentage or in terms of
Percentage,
number,
just tax increase percent.
I do not have that percentage of 2022.
40%. 40%. 40% tax increase. And then in 2023, it was a 20% tax increase. And that's just the county, right? So and that's one of the things that as taxpayers, we've all been concerned about, is we've been concerned of out of control spending and budgeting from the county. And the county, when the Board of Commissions meet and they say one of the main reasons that the budget goes up is they always say it's public safety.
Yes.
and they have to provide. So
Correct.
that backs up your statement of the increased budgets. Okay,
Correct. Correct.
because it goes in line with the tax increases that the commissioners are saying, and the main reason they're having to do it is increasing public safety dollars.
65% is the number that's been told that they allocate towards public safety in and of itself. It's a big chunk, Larry. It's a big chunk, and I think that that's something that we have to look at. Once again, the numbers are the numbers. People perceive numbers to be different ways, but that's one of the things that I want to do. And I'm being very. We're going to conduct within the first 90 days. We're going to conduct an audit, and I'm going to tell you the truth because I want the people to know. Should you elect me to be your sheriff, how I took it over, what we were looking at, and then we're going to draw a line in the sand and says that the buck stops here, and this is when we're going to start being more accountable with how we allocate the taxpayers' dollars, even in the sheriff's office. Safety is important. No one is knocking that, but it's also our responsibility as leaders to engage with due diligence and careful due diligence with the dollars that we've been entrusted to be able to manage on behalf of the taxpayer.
So Corey, you mentioned in your second priority is transparent leadership. Where do you see now that we have a lack of transparency in the current administration to where you would change that and be more transparent to the citizens? What are, can you list a few of the areas where you don't think we have transparency that exists and how you will change that in your administration?
Number one, in terms of the crime rate, the crime rate that has been touted is, I believe, down 60 some odd percent, when that's not true. The crime rate has increased approximately 34% in our county. Even the numbers that they put out, the administration put out, even online, people begin to deconstruct and we begin to look at it. See, when we look at crime, we use what we call UCR codes, but now there's another method that we go by in terms of being able to look at NIBRs in terms of looking at crime. We report it to the national level of law enforcement, and then they produce reports that trickle back down. And when you move to a community, that's how you're able to pull the crime stats, whether or not there's burglaries, murders, and things of that particular nature. Well, the truth of the matter is that the crime that the sheriff's office is purporting to be a reduction is not a reduction. It's an increase. And so, number one, just being honest. And I'm gonna tell you right now, Larry, because I don't believe you invited me on your show. We're gonna talk about facts and we're not talking about drama. But I've experienced things to where we do have an integrity issue in our sheriff's office. So number one, we have to be able to be honest about the crime rate. Secondly, transparency in terms of how we are dealing with discipline in the sheriff's office as it relates to who we decide to discipline, how we discipline these individuals, and individuals that commit more egregious acts and they do not receive the level of discipline in terms of how far we want to go on the Richter scale of being able to discipline people. Some people receive more harsher punishments than, or more harsh punishment than other individuals, and it's based upon who you know. So that nepotism issue is, and you can talk to any single deputy that is not showing up at the forums, and they're literally making fake accounts, sending these messages to our campaign, and we don't say their names or because some of them we know. The ones that we don't know because they have fake names, we don't talk about their names. But transparency, not just on the outside in terms of crime reporting and our successes and failures, because we don't succeed in everything. It's natural. We're not going to succeed in everything. You're going to have failures. So I think it's a concern that we can only tout our successes and only successes, and we don't talk about the areas that we have opportunities to grow in. I don't know about you, Larry, but there's definitely areas I can grow in. There's always room for improvement. So number one, the transparency in terms of the crime report. Number two, the transparency as it relates to how we are disciplining our deputies and how we are hiring our deputies and the things that we're allowing our deputies to be able to do. And then number four, straight across the board, right? Transparency in terms of the access that we give the citizens on a consistent basis to levels of leadership within the sheriff's office, so that when you're asking questions, and this is your sheriff's office, as it has been said, one of the things that I want to do is on a quarterly basis. I said quarterly, hold me to it. Choose a group of individuals that are able to come in, sit down, and talk to me about the trajectory in which the county is going in terms of safety and the opportunities, and how we can partner as a community to be able to make our county even more safe. And so those are just three areas right there. Transparency in terms of how we report our numbers, transparency as relates to how we really treat our deputies and what's going on the inside, and then transparency in terms of access and presence. Right?
So,
Not just seeing me during an election time, but I'm always in the community. Larry, you see me, so that's nothing that's going to change.
so with the discipline thing, Corey, this is the way I hear you actually with this. It's develop policy and be consistent with the implementing and enforcement of the policy. Would that be?
No, so yes, no, you're exactly right. Engaging a policy whereby which we hold ourselves accountable to that policy, so that we're holding deputies accountable.
Because the way you're explaining it to me now is there's policy in place, but some people elude and are not or they're not, the same policy doesn't apply. That correct? So it
Correct.
would be consistent policy enforcement.
Correct. You're absolutely
Okay.
correct. And in a law enforcement agency, it's important that you're consistent as it relates to discipline and the actions that you take on the individual, because what it really tends to do, it tends to lower morale in an agency.
Corey, it's not only that. I mean, I run a business and I have many employees, and if I we have policies, right? And if I don't follow the same path with each employee when they violate a policy, then it does start a lot of chaos within the ranks, right? Because they'll know, well, it doesn't matter. If I mess up, I can do this light offense, and they're going to throw the book at me. Those guys over there can do about anything, and it doesn't matter. They're just going to look the other way. So yeah, enforcement of policy has to be equal and right across the board.
Yes, yes, most definitely. And that's one of the things we're going to look at in the Rockdale Citizen. I did note that, being able to engage policy in such a way to where and establish policy, so that, and when we talked about it, we also talked about the CALIA standard, right? Which is basically the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. That's a standard. And right now, currently, our sheriff's office, they don't have it. Newton County Sheriff's Office has it. Covington Police has it. Conyers has it. I mean, the gamut goes on. And I believe one of the reasons why we don't have it is because maybe we have not allocated the resources to begin to build in that way. But there's a bunch of policy inconsistencies. The reason why the death occurred in the jail was because people weren't following policy. And so you have to have leadership. You know that, Larry, as a leader, not only establish the policy, but you have to actually enforce it. And then when there's an infraction, actually hold people accountable so that others are feared. And then obviously you're running an efficient and proficient agency.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, and you're right. Policy is no good unless it's implemented.
correct.
If it's just on paper and it's not followed, it's just words on paper, and
Correct.
that's reality. So you
Correct.
talked about the crime rate. Now I've heard you. I think you're the only one I've heard mention this statistic, and I talked to Judge Wood about this the other day, and she did agree with the age group. You had said that the most of our crimes in Rockdale County, and I believe, and I get it wrong, you correct me, please. You said were performed by 15 to 28-year-olds. In that time period was who actually commits the majority of our crimes in Rockdale County is young offenders, 15 to 28 years old. Have I got that age group correct, Corey?
Yes, yes, you're absolutely correct.
So what is the percent? Because that like I said, we don't really hear percents. Nobody talk. What would so is that growing steady or is it consistent?
It's over. Last time I checked, it was, and when I actually made that statement, it was over 50% of what we call our Part 1 crimes are committed. So it's over 50%. So more than half in Rockdale County of our Part 1 crimes are committed by individuals between the ages of 15 and 28 years old. So asking the judge would be, that's a pretty good source. And because she was able to confirm that, then we have a major issue here, which is one of my major plans is to be able to engage our young people, in such a way. Now, Larry, some people, they commit crimes, they have to be locked up. It is what it is. Go to jail. You do the crime. You do the time. But I also believe that we have massive opportunities here in Rockdale County to be able to prevent some of these young people from going down a path that would take them out of our society in an adverse way and would lower that number from below 50 to under 50%. And so that's why that's important. When you look at crime, fighting crime, obviously there's an element that's a practical element. You have to get out there, you have to patrol, you have to make contacts, right, in the field, you have to investigate, you have to bring these people to justice. But another important aspect of crime fighting is understanding your stats. That's the whole term criminology, the study of crime, right? And the trend of crime. And not just where it's going to take place next, because that is important. We look at that in comp stat meetings, but also who are these offenders, right? And if we see that these offenders, by way of studying the criminal element, it was within a certain age group, and you're finding out that the people who you are arresting are all in your community, then guess what? We got a problem. And as the sheriff, right, you don't only elect me to be reactive, but you also elect me to be proactive. I don't want to just solve the crime that has already been committed, but I want to be able to prevent crime from happening. And I think that we do that by optimistically engaging this group of people that you just spoke of and building meaningful relationships so that we can motivate them and we can outpace the criminal element by being able to establish meaningful relationships that could, influence them to go the other way. And so that number is above 50%, and that is correct.
So, and you're right. And one of the ways is patrolling and engaging. So that comes to another question, which I think there's been a lot of controversy and conflict about, is where we are as far as patrol officers, where we are with staffing. So, Corey, do you know right now what the number of actually active patrol officers are, and where do you, if no, where do you think the number should be able for Rockdale County to have enough boots on the ground and enough patrolling presence to actually help with this community policing and patrolling? Because when you have officers out there patrolling and people see you out there, it also deters crime.
Oh,
So
no.
how many officers do we have now that are active, and what should the number be? That I think that's a good way to put it.
So people leave and go every single day. So I don't know the accurate number. The last I checked,
Average.
average. Okay. The last I checked, maybe around 100, and that's out there right now. We're looking at maybe around 120, something like that. But we're talking about an agency average, right? Over the last 4 years, this is the numbers that I did pull. Over the last 4 years, I do know for an agency that is approximately outfit for 314 people, right? Now, that does include approximately 14 crossing guards. And then that does include also your civilian personnel, okay? 250 people, 250 people, right? Almost 80, in excess of 80% of people had gone and left the agency. Now, Larry, that those are alarming rates as it relates to retention. Why? Because then you'll start getting conversations on the street, which, by the way, began by deputies meeting up with people at Quick Trips and complaining to the citizens because of call times that there weren't enough deputies to be able to patrol the road. So 250 people leave within a 4-year period on an average of $10,000 per deputy to outfit that deputy. You outfit them, you train them, you give them a gun, you give them a badge, you give them a car, you give them training. You do about $10,000. So 250, math serves me right, it's about $2.5 million out of the door, right? That we have to continue to recycle. Taxpayers, we have to continue to recycle that. And they're not leaving just because of money. I think the the administration said in a forum, we're at 90%. And I think, now that number, he went back on that number and says more like 80%, right? Well, the truth of the number is he has to keep on coming down because there is deficiencies and our retention is at an all-time low. And they're leaving because here it is. Once again, Larry, you said it. You're in leadership at the company that you own, right? Or that you manage at the leadership position that you're at. Understanding that people are important to any vision or any organization within the county. We need people. And it's not like we have lines wrapped around the door. So to continue to say that, oh, well, the Board of Commissioners need to give us more resources. In translation, they need to give us more money. In translation, or loosely translated, we have to find that money from somewhere, whether it's raising taxes or taking from this area to put in this particular area. That can't always be the answer when these deputies are simply saying, we're leaving because we're not treated right. We're leaving because we're not in the clique. We're leaving because we're being targeted. We're being targeted because we were told we weren't on the team. And so we won't be able to write a check big enough as taxpayers for that, Larry. At some point, we have to get competent leadership that understand that there's a difference between running an agency and running a campaign, right? As a sheriff, right? One of the things that I cannot do is I cannot pull people in and make them feel a certain type of way based on how their family voted or what they're thinking about. That's separate, and that's I don't believe that's legal from a civilian or from a civility standpoint. And so, on average, to me, we need to be touting with a department outfitted for 314 people. To me, I think that we need to have shifts on the road whereby which if there's 8 zones, there's one person per zone, right? And then we're able to overlap that with an additional 4 deputies on the street, not including the supervisors, so that there's backup to the backup and we have coverage. So whatever those numbers will equate to, that's what I would be an advocate for in making sure that we're able to get numbers to that particular level to be able to satisfy the coverage that the county needs.
Now with our budget we have now, how many, what personnel we budget for? What's our number? Do you know?
Or approximately 314.
314 is the number we budget for right now.
And that includes approximately 14 people who are crossing guards.
And we're nowhere near there with those numbers.
No, sir. No, sir. Which, okay. So if those positions aren't filled, right? Those classified positions, if they're not filled, then what are we doing with the money that's supposed to be used for those salaries?
Yep, I've asked that many times in the past, right? So never got a good answer. So let me ask you. So just being honest, right?
Okay.
So that's the money that goes into the abyss. So so let me ask you this way, right? So and I understand what you're talking about. You need the 8 zones. You need overlap. And would you do 12-hour shifts, 10-hour? How would you do those shifts, Corey?
Well, let me tell you one.
Or would it be 8s and then overlapped with 8s?
Right.
I know how to. Would you do 8-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts? And would you do it with? I know how to do the overlapping. You just have them come in 4 hours. They overlap each shift 4 hours. I get that.
Of course. But for the benefit of the people that's watching, I'll answer the question. So I am a fan of 12-hour shifts because it gives our deputies more time off.
Yep.
When you have 12-hour shifts, then essentially you're only working 15 days a month. Okay. To be able to make that 12 hours up, right? And some is 36, and then it may spill over to some overtime that's automatically built in because of the way that the shifts are ran. However, with a 10-hour shift, then you have an opportunity for overlapping, right? With a 10-hour shift, because you're working 4 days, right? So you're working 4 days, 10-hour shifts, that's 40 hours a week. And then there's more of opportunity. What I'm a proponent of doing is what our chief did years ago. Listen, this is not a dictatorship. You will trust me to be able to make the most impactful and effective decision to make sure that we're safe as a county. But we have a departmental meeting or agency meeting. And we get with our leaders. First of all, we get their thoughts because come on, Rockdale County, you elect me to be the sheriff. Then we have an opportunity to do something new, to do something fresh, right? And I will go on record and say this. I'm grateful for the years that the current administration has served. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that. The staff, the leadership, but we have an opportunity to take to the next level and do something different now. And with that comes a new look. It comes a new approach. It comes new conversation. Every now and again, you gotta reset, right? And when you reset, you engage zero-based budgeting. You take everything down and you say, listen, guys, what are we doing? What are we doing? And is what we're doing working? Is it effective? Is it meeting the needs of the taxpayer? What we're producing, the outcomes, right? Let's look at what we are producing. What is the product? And is the product best serving the citizens, not our own pockets, not us, not our own aggrandizement, right? And so I would essentially have a meeting with the entire agency, starting my leaders first, looking at now the national trends of, what is the fatigue level of individuals that's at 12 hours, right? And then and what's the mental weight or the mental effects that it has on the deputies now that policing has evolved and changed over a period of time. Once again, keeping the county safe and fighting crime is not just a practical thing, it's a theoretical thing as well. It's a theory. So we got to approach this thing with theory, stats. What is the national standard? What's going on? So I would look at that. I would put it before my leadership staff. And then guess what? We're going to ask the deputies. What do you guys think?
Corey, I've got a little opinion about the 12-hour thing, right?
Okay.
So if it's the day shift 12-hour thing, it works very well. The night shift 12-hour thing, not a good idea.
It hurts you.
It hurts you. So I would be in favor of the 12-hour day shift thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think the night shift thing is where you do your 8 hours with your split shift and the overlap, right? And then rotate to days and you get the extra days off. But I mean, just for me, and you talked about the mental fatigue and the awareness and such. I mean, when we work in the construction trades and everything, when we work those long night shifts, that's when most of our incidents occur, right?
Right.
We have less incidents working those 12, 13-hour days that are daytime days versus nighttime days because people are just not nocturnal animals, right?
Wow.
And we just do not function as good at nighttime as we do in the daytime. That's just it's just a reality.
You're right. And I've done both. 8-hour shifts.
I have too.
Yeah. So there's and the thing is, with the second one that you talked about, the 12-hour shift that's overnight, man. And it's true. 8-hour shifts, we come in at 2, we're done at 10. I mean, before we know it, it's over because of the excitement of policing and things like that. You're more amped for the next day. However, you work more days during the week, less time with your family. So now you got a problem on the home front. But with the 12-hour shift during the nighttime, man, you hit that literally 9 and 10 o'clock, and you're thinking,
you hit that hump, right, man?
Yeah. And you got to think about it, man. I got 8 more hours to go. And, around that 1, 2 o'clock, man, you got to go somewhere and park, get some coffee. That's why you see most of them at Quick Trip around that time because they're trying to stay awake.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the only thing that concerns me about a 12-hour shift when you're doing the night cycle, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that just food for thought. I mean, it concerns me when we have the nighttime jobs and everything. I try to keep it down to the 10-hour window at night because they don't function well after that 8 hours.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's really a waste of my time to have them out there because I'm in a production thing. With you, it'd be different because they're going to be out there no matter what, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, that's just my thought process,
Well, I'm glad you gave it to me, Larry. And let's take this opportunity to show the people how Corey Hambrick will lead. People like you who are in our community that have wonderful ideas, right, that are stakeholders. We come in and they're just suggestions. I'm open. Now, ultimately, the decision will, whether it works or not, right, it will land on me. And I have to be adult and mature enough to be able to take the blame whether it works or not. But there's nothing wrong with being open and hearing ideas, right, that'll better suit our deputies. That also can be a point in terms of benefits for people to get onto the agency, based on seniority, based on, like years of service and things of that particular nature, whether you want to work days or night, days or at 12. But that also comes with partnering with the Board of Commissioners in terms of the Office of Talent Management and billing these hours and making sure, that we're lock in step. Because I do understand as a sheriff's office, it is not me over there. Should you have me as your sheriff? Once again, all these things are hypothetical, given that I win over there in, operating in silos. And I think that's another thing too, Larry. You haven't talked about it yet, but, competition is out and collaboration is in. And I think it's time for us. And one of the things that I'm interested in bringing to, in terms of the sheriff's office, is being able to unify our community. There's so much division, man, and we can't get anything done apart. And so I think that, if we approach, all these things as your sheriff, saying, listen, I want to be inclusive, and I want to ask not just the elected officials in the courthouse in terms of your safety, elected officials or officials at the courthouse, talking about the safety plan and how things haven't been done and how they feel unsafe. These are conversations that I'm having. I'm not going to tell you who, but these are conversations that I'm having. And so I'm like, man, we really can do better. And so with that suggestion, we can take this right here as a case study. Hear it be known tonight that Larry Cox gave a suggestion. Corey Hambrick heard it, and that's something that we're going to discuss. Just that easy. It's not hard.
I've got a few questions people have asked in here, and I'm going to back up. So Alex McDonald asked, when you were talking about people leaving and retention issues,
Okay.
he was like, aren't most people actually leaving because of the liability law enforcement officers face today? Is liability one of the issues that drive people out of law enforcement?
Thank you for that question, Alex. And I'm specifically talking about at the Rockdale County Sheriff's Office, which is where I'm running for sheriff. But to Alex's credit, a lot of people are leaving the profession of law enforcement worldwide because of how the culture has shifted over the years. And why has the culture shifted? Because we're not transparent. Why is the culture shifted? Because we're willing to police people, but not ourselves. We're willing to hold people accountable, but we're not willing to hold ourselves accountable. And that is the reason why people are leaving law enforcement, on a national average, but specifically the Rockdale County Sheriff's Office is because of those reasons why I aforementioned.
Right. And then Connie wanted to know, because I think you did mention it, and you said on average, how many days a month off if you do 12-hour shifts do people get?
15, half on, because let's say you work 2, then you're off 2, then you work 3. Then the very next week, it just basically, it flips. You're off 2, you work 2, you work 3. So it works out to about half a month, about 15 days a month.
So this is, Justin's got a question, and actually I was going to hit you up with this question too, because it's something that I think Justin and I both agree on that we would like to see. So Corey, this is Justin Kenny, school board member's question. What are your thoughts on having uniform SROs in elementary school?
I think as much presence as we can give, especially in soft targets like elementary schools and churches, we need to be about it. Point blank. Right? The criminal element, and I hate to say this, but there for a lot of them, it's mental illness. It is. But you're not that crazy, right? If you want to go to a place where there isn't anyone that can respond with the same level of force that you have. And so we have to think like that. So
and are we correct? Some of the most heinous and horrific things that have happened at elementary schools where there's no defense. Would that be accurate to say nationally?
That is we can talk about all the schools. Sandy, we can name them off, Larry. You and I can name them.
That's right. We can. And these soft targets, as you call them, where there is no defense mechanism, is where these individuals have went because they were easy prey.
Of course. Now, because we're talking about it and you didn't invite me on your program to sit here and lie to you, and hear me, Larry, whatever question you ask me tonight, I'm going to answer. Whatever. We're live. So don't hold back. Whatever you want to ask me, I'm going to answer. Okay.
Oh, I got you.
Okay. So because of that, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because people got to hear truth now, right? We got to stop all this. Let's lay out the truth. from the bottom of my heart, the truth of the matter is once if we could get our numbers to what we're budgeted for, there's more opportunity for us here in Rockdale County. I appreciate the school system. I know, Justin, the school system, they have these lobbies, right? That they've encased, these protective lobbies and things like that. My children, they attend school here in Rockdale County. I go through those lobbies to be buzzed in. I think it's a wonderful thing, but there's nothing like presence. There's nothing like presence. And when you have presence, now the criminal element sees, I have to skip this school because there's someone there that can match my fire.
And you know what, Corey, with me as a grandparent and as a form, I mean, it would have given me a peace of mind with knowing that that existed at that level with my kids. Would have been totally for it because it would have given me a peace of mind. You know what I mean?
Right.
It would have eased my anxiety a bit with it.
Yeah. And in full transparency, because Corey's not, the be all, know it all, and the God of everything. I give credit to where credit is due. Like I stated about the school board. What I'm simply stating here, and I hope you guys can appreciate, my being candid. There are, based on the knowledge that I know that I have, working within the City of Conyers Police Department for the years that I did. When an officer is assigned, or maybe if a deputy, I don't know if this is it with deputies, with SROs, but if an officer is assigned, let's say, for instance, at Rockdale County High School, then directly across the street, I believe, is CJ Hicks. So because of that, then that student resource officer, that SRO, will respond to both schools. Now, their office may not be there, but they will respond to both schools. I do not know if the sheriff's office, and once again, it's a lack of manpower. There is a lack of manpower. And so there's a lack of manpower. Then now there's less resources to spread around. So to make one deputy who may be at Edwards Middle also be responsible for Honey Creek Elementary, those things may be happening. But to your point, I believe that we need to first fill all of our positions, right? Take it down to zero, Larry, look at what we got, and then we could better allocate those resources, and we could come up with a totally different plan, right? We call that a SWOT analysis.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, and Justin, I think we discussed this before, that as far as the school resource officers, if the county and the sheriff's department and the BOE share the cost of the officer. So
Yes.
I believe that's a shared cost.
Well, yes. Last once again in my conversations in participating and being with the City of Conyers Police Department, I believe that that's a practice across the board. That is a cost both for the county as well as the BOE. That they share their costs, but also we have opportunities to be able to get grants, right?
Yes.
So that we could hire additional. Now, Larry, come on. Once again, I believe we're both economists, and I believe we're both patriots. We're patriotic. So, we pay attention to what goes on at the national level. There is money that the federal government has set aside to make sure that we harden up our schools.
Yes.
Why aren't we tapping into that aggressively? Why?
I agree. And there needs to be cooperative effort with it,
Yes.
with the BOE and the sheriff's office. And that brings me to a question. I heard something the other day, and it puzzled me when I heard it. When they were talking about the Big Six, and they didn't mention the sheriff being part of the Big Six. Is the sheriff not part of the Big Six?
No, he's not.
Why? You know what I mean. I mean, you were when you were chief of staff.
Yes, I was a part of the Big Six, Larry. There you go, Larry. I said it. I was a part of the Big Six. Yes. And and no, the sheriff was not there. The mayor and the person that runs his day-to-day operations, the city manager, the chairman, and the chief of staff. And at that time, the school board president or chairman and the superintendent. Those are the six individuals. Now, you look at it as three governmental entities coming together. Three governmental entities.
But the sheriff doesn't answer to anybody He's his own entity. That's just reality.
Well, yeah, he's his own entity.
He's
Um,
he's budgeted by the county,
correct.
but he doesn't answer to anybody.
No, correct.
So he should be part of whatever you have because you sort of
If for
can't.
no other purpose but information sharing, safety. People move to communities because number one, they're safe, and because their kids are going to learn. Period. Period. And of course, they want to be where there's a great, economic development is taking place, good jobs, but one of the two things, if we all were just very honest tonight, am I going to be safe, and how are the schools? I don't think is a bad idea. I understand why he's not, but I don't, because I was a part of those meetings once again. But because of the culture that we're having, even if he met with them, you know, even if he, I just saw one of your comments right there from Lisa say he answers to the coroner. I didn't say that. That's what Lisa Lancaster said. And the truth of the matter with that is the coroner is the only person that can take out a warrant on the sheriff, right? That's the only
Yeah,
person
he
that
doesn't
can take
answer
a
to the
warrant. But he
coroner.
doesn't answer to the coroner. He
No.
does answer to the governor. The governor can correct or discipline the sheriff, and that's the only person that can
Yes,
do
the
that.
only person that can suspend the sheriff or
Correct.
take action against the sheriff is the governor of Georgia.
Correct. I will, as your sheriff, request. I know it was a joke, Lisa, but I wanted to point that out because
Well, a lot
because
of people probably didn't take that as a joke
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's been.
and some people think that to be true though, Lisa. To your point, but I know you were joking, Lisa. But I did want to point that out. But I will, as your sheriff, I will ask, to at least attend a percentage of those Big Six meetings that they have, just to see basically, as another elected official that literally touches all three of these entities. Once again, inclusivity. What do you need from us?
Well, from what I understand, they don't meet anymore anyway. But sometimes it's whatever, right? So they sort of stop regular meeting from for some unknown reason. But but like I said, I believe Corey, this is something we need as citizens have a conversation about
Yes.
with our elected officials. Hey, we need you guys to actually coordinate more
Hmm.
and cooperate more.
Yeah.
And part of that coordinating and cooperating would be to add the sheriff to any of these things because it's a necessity in the county. So as if you're elected sheriff, you wouldn't mind going to the Big Six meeting. We know we call it the Big Seven.
I would love. I would love it, Larry. I would love it, man. I would love going to those meetings because once again, that's part of our platform. Once again, being transparent, which means being present. And I was asked a question in another forum. One of the strong suits I'm really proud of is the ability, to be inclusive, right? So to open ourselves up, right, to be present, to be vulnerable enough to other stakeholders and other elected officials and officials in our county and say, listen, guys, what do you need from me? What can we do better? How can we make it more safe? And definitely attending Big Six meetings and requesting. You guys want me to, based on the agenda, what's going on, or if we have something happen in the school, hey guys, let's come in, let's talk because safety is a top priority and will continue to be a top priority, even with me, even more so.
I agree with that. I mean, and it all comes down to coordinating, talking, communicating,
Yes.
knowing what's going on in the community as a community, so we can figure it out together. I agree 1,000%. That needs to happen. So that would be fantastic. So let's see. Was there any other questions? I don't think there's anything else we've missed in here, Corey. So we're right at an hour. I mean, and it flies, doesn't it?
Wow. Already.
Yeah, yeah, we're right at an hour right now. So, uh, is there anything you want to go over?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the citizens of Rockdale County. I've been out canvassing and in the communities, and I'm telling you, man, we have one. I know we hear negative things about our community. I'm talking about the people that make up our community now. we have wonderful people that are out here willing to participate in order to make our community all that I believe that it can be. And that's why I am running for sheriff. I'm running for sheriff, number one, to give you a choice. Number one, to give you my heart. Number one, to be, number two, to be transparent, right? And number three, to produce results. To produce results. Um, to me, we could drive fast cars. We can lock people up. We can continue to engage in things that don't even matter. We as a community have to get back to the things that matter, and that is safety, that is people, and that is respect for everyone. I have experienced some things during this campaign, Larry, that I can tell you it it has deeply disappointed me. But what it has not done is distracted me from being able to talk about the facts. Because at the end of the day, we want the people to hear what we can do for you and how impactful and influential we can be. I'm not doing this because I want stars on my shoulders. I'm not doing this because I have a need for a job. The Lord has blessed me, and I'm self employed. I thank God for that. I'm doing this because I see a need and I see an opportunity whereby I can play a part in making our community better. So once again, safety, leadership, and community. Three areas that I'm going to focus on right off the bat is fiscal management, conducting an audit, right? Because if we don't triage this, we'll be up another $11 million in the next 4 years. That's not sustainable in your house, and it's not sustainable for us as a county. So these are the things that I want to work on. Should you give me the opportunity to be able to serve you, should you trust me, I promise that I will not disappoint you.
Yeah, I think I wanted Alex to ask the question, and I wasn't certain what it meant either. So Josh asked, he did a follow up. So he asked Alex. So do you see Alex's question? It
No.
says, will you sign? I'll put it up here.
What are Form Ones? I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what that is. What is
I
that?
don't know what that is either. We're going to get Alex to tell us.
Okay.
Alex, could you NFA applications?
Um, I think that people who are law-abiding citizens, NFA, give me what that means. I know.
Alex, this it's firearm applications. I
That's what I
think
thought. The National Firearm. I didn't want to assume that.
I
Um,
think it's like for different kind of things. Like Alex, like for I think for suppressors and maybe stuff like that. I believe.
yeah, I think he's going to clarify the question.
Yeah.
So, suppressors, SBR statues have to become
Yeah. See,
accompanied by,
I was right. Yeah.
yes, 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 accompanied by a Form One, which has to have a sign off by the sheriff. All right, so let's just kill the elephant in the room, right? I believe in the Second Amendment. Okay, I believe in the Second Amendment. Why? Because I have guns myself. I have guns myself, and while I do believe that we should not put guns in the hands, and I'm gonna say this now, of people who are proven to be immature and proven to be individuals that cannot handle the rights that our Constitution give us, then as the sheriff of our county, I would be doing you a disservice if I allowed them to continue to have guns, right? But once again, guys, I think we misappropriate this. This is not a question for the sheriff. This is a question for legislation, right? I only enforce the laws.
Well, you do sign off on the Form
Well,
One.
I'm about to get to that question. I'm just talking about the Second Amendment.
Okay.
So suppressors, SPRs, etc., have to be accompanied by a form. Once again, if this is not a person, and I'm answering the question, that is proven to be an individual who cannot handle the right, then who am I to stand in the way? So yes, I will. I can't. You do not pay me to um, make law. You pay me to enforce law. And if the form is there, if there is any reason, or if there's not a reason by the probate judge or anybody like that that says, hey, this person should not be able to have a silencer, suppressor, then why would I take it upon myself and say, no, you can't have this? Am I clear on that? I mean, I want to make sure I'm coming across.
You're perfectly clear on that.
Okay.
As long as that person is constitutionally qualified, you're going to sign off on it. Totally get it.
Yes.
Alex, does that answer your question sufficiently? I think he'll say yes, but that's
Okay.
because I think you did answer it pretty clear. If you
Yeah.
know, he said that's fair.
Yeah. Okay, because the sheriff has discretion. You know that's a big word, Alex, discretion. And I think we shouldn't abuse our discretion. I think we should stay in our lane. And if the people that we elect under the Gold Dome down there off Capitol Avenue says that this is things that it's not been outlawed by the state, then who am I as a local sheriff to take authority in my hand and take that right, that constitutional right, away from people? And so Josh, all good. So yeah, so that's my answer on that. I'm all about a safe community, guys, all about a safe community. And if we're giving individuals that's abusing the rights and we're catching individuals, then we'll be the first person, moving that those individuals, once it's been proven, once we're able to look at diagnosis, once we're able to look at probate decisions and things like that, to remove every single weapon that's in their possession, because I don't want them to look at one of our soft targets. And then now it's my fault
There you
because
go.
I signed a form when I shouldn't have signed a form. Is that good?
Yep, that's good.
Okay.
Well, guys, we're gonna tell you guys good night. Corey and I love the show tonight. I think Corey got a lot of good information out there,
Thank
and I
you.
think you guys learned a lot about Corey tonight. You got to see where he stands on a lot of issues, and I think that that's what we need to do. We need to have more forums like this where candidates
Yes.
where they
Yes.
get to express themselves freely, not held back. So
Yes.
as on this show, as you can see, you can say whatever you want, and you guys can ask questions, and I'll read them out there, and the candidates answer them. So
Can I say this, Larry, very
yeah,
quickly?
yes,
I need every single Republican to vote for me, please. I'm telling you, we're in a race. And I was out there in the community a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to a lady, and she did not know. So this is not you saying it, Larry. This is me saying it. One of the things that I believe that we can do is do not let your voice go unheard. Just because you vote Democratic on this ballot, it doesn't mean that you can't vote Republican in the general election. I think there's a misnomer about that. That no, I don't, you're not going to turn into a Democrat. I promise you. The presidential primary is already passed, so you voted for who you want to vote for. Um, Please let your voice be heard and vote for Corey Hambrick. Go to our website and ask me any questions you want to, and we'll show up and we'll answer and sit down and have coffee with you. That's all I want to say, Larry. Thank you.
well, you know what, Corey, I can tell people right now. I've been telling people they need to pull a Democrat ballot because you know what, Larry Cox pulled a Democrat ballot and voted in the Democrat primary because there's
There
not
you go.
one single anything else running anywhere else. So if you
Right.
didn't pull a Democrat ballot, you didn't vote for
Yes.
anybody. So that's the only ballot to pull. So if
Right.
you pulled a Republican ballot, if you've asked for a Republican write-in, I mean absentee, go to the Board of Elections and tell them you want to trade that thing in. And people are doing that, Corey. Just so you know, people who've requested Republican absentee ballots are
Hmm.
actually going up there and trading them in because they
Beautiful.
realize there's nobody to vote for. So that's the
Awesome.
thing that's happening. So you've got people on here coming in there saying they've already done it, and they so you
Thank you,
got
guys.
it. So we people know what they're doing. They're trying to, as Cheryl says all the time, reset Rockdale. And Tommy Lee, so did I. So guys, I mean, so that's what's going on in Rockdale County right now. Rockdale County individuals realize that you've got to vote where the people are running,
Yes.
and party locally doesn't really matter, right? It
Exactly.
really doesn't. So
Exactly.
it's candidates. So, but guys, a good show here tonight.
Good show,
Again,
Larry.
good questions, good answers. Guys, I will see you this coming Wednesday. I am going to have Tawana Smith on the show tonight, this coming Wednesday. So Tawana's going to be on the show. She's running for post one commissioner, and she's going to be my Wednesday candidate interview. So you guys join me at 8 o'clock. It'll be a good show. We get to listen to somebody else running to change Rockdale County. So good night, guys. Corey, just stay on, and I'll end us. And
I
we'll
can't
get off.
believe you called me out about the Big Six. You got me, Larry. I can't believe you did that.
It wasn't a bad call out, Corey. But I knew you did sit on the Big Six. Thanks, guys.
Bye.